April is a great month for gardening, but it does start getting really hot, especially near the end of the month. So I think of this as the beginning of the end of the spring planting season. Even though a lot of vegetables will thrive during April, the really hot weather is fast approaching now. So a lot of the common garden vegetables that we usually think of growing in a temperate climate will start to struggle in a couple of months. All parts of Florida are past the window for planting any cool season crops, and even a lot of the warm season vegetables can't take the heat and humidity of our summer, so there are less of the commonly known vegetables to plant in April. North Florida can still plant most warm season crops in April, but for Central and South Florida the list is dwindling. Warm season crops that can be planted in April include beans, corn in North and Central Florida, cucumbers in North Florida only, eggplant in North Florida only, melons in North Florida only, okra, peppers, southern peas, squashes in North and Central Florida, and tomatoes in North Florida. Most of us could still probably get away with growing some small cherry tomatoes, especially if we find a variety like Everglades cherry tomatoes or other small currant type tomatoes. Those tend to withstand the heat and humidity better than the larger normal sized tomatoes. But even for North Florida, it would be best probably to go ahead and buy seedlings of the regular sized tomatoes instead of planting from seed. That way you get a head start on the heat and humidity that will be arriving in June. And if you started from seed, you may not have enough time for your tomatoes to fully mature before the really hot, humid weather gets here, and they don't do so well once that happens. Also, just note that some vegetables do best when the seed is planted directly into the soil instead of using transplants. So I noted these with a DS for direct sow. So beans, corn, cucumbers, melons, okra, southern peas, squashes, all do best when you plant the seed directly into the soil instead of using a transplant. There are lots of tropical crops that we can plant in April that will thrive through our hot summers. Even North Florida should be able to start planting tropical crops after the danger of frost has passed. Tropical crops include amaranth, arrowroot, calabaza, chaya, chayote, cranberry hibiscus, gingers, turmeric, katuk, loofah, malanga, moringa, papaya, passion fruit, pigeon pea, pineapple, roselle, Seminole pumpkin, sugarcane, sweet potatoes, taro, tropical greens and tropical spinaches, and yucca. Herbs to plant in April include anise, basil, chives, dill, marjoram, mint, oregano, rosemary, sage, and thyme. My garden is located in Central Florida, fairly near to the West Coast, in Zone 9B. In April, I'll be wrapping up a few last plantings of some warm season crops, but will mainly be focused on planting tropical crops. I'll be planting cranberry hibiscus, gingers and turmeric, green beans, long beans, moringa, papaya, peppers, pigeon pea, pineapple, roselle, Seminole pumpkin, sweet potatoes, and some tropical greens and spinaches. My favorite ones are green callaloo amaranth, malokia, which is also called Egyptian spinach, New Zealand spinach, longevity spinach, and sisu, also called Brazilian spinach, and vegetable amaranth. I'll mention a few last considerations about gardening in April. First of all, be prepared that the insects start to arrive in droves along with the warmer weather. I really start noticing caterpillars of all kinds on my vegetable plants right around the 1st of April and even at the end of March this year. The lubber grasshoppers that will eat anything and everything are also hatching out in huge numbers, and all sorts of other flying insects start showing up as well. This is only the beginning of the insect invasion. It will get worse and worse throughout the summer. But now is the time to start checking your plants as often as possible, so you can either hand pick or spray the pests before they get out of control. Whenever possible, I prefer to hand pick the insects as opposed to spraying my garden. But occasionally an infestation gets severe enough that I will use an organic pesticide spray targeted only on the pest that is causing the damage. For most flying insects like whiteflies, I use either homemade or pre-made insecticidal soap, and for caterpillars, I use spinosad and sometimes BT. I'll put links in the description to the organic products I use. And I did another YouTube video about using BT and spinosad to control worms in my squash plants, which has been my biggest problem with pests. So if you're interested, you can watch that video by clicking on the link at the end of this video. Just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that you should try to kill all of the bugs in your garden. A lot of bugs are beneficial for our gardens, and some even prey on the bad bugs. I grow all sorts of flowers and herbs to attract beneficial insects to my garden, and I don't want them to be collateral damage. So I'm very careful to just target only the most serious pests when there's a severe problem. I only use organic pest control methods, but even organic pesticides can wipe out the beneficial bugs, so I don't use them often. And one last thing to consider is that we're still in our dry season until June, and it's getting hotter and hotter, so the soil will dry out even faster. So we'll need to make sure our plants are getting enough water on a regular basis. I hope y'all have a pleasant and productive April. Happy gardening!